Hi guys. I'm guessing you can all hear me. I feel like I can hear myself through this. It's a bit weird. Well, like Jean said, she probably took two of my sentences out of the way, so I'll give you that. But I'm Janita. I am a final year radiography student. Currently, I am just getting through the last year of my course, and hopefully we can see a few of you next year. My job here today is to basically give you the rundown of the student experience of doing radiography. So at least by the end of this talk, you could see how it's like being a student in the biggest university in Ireland, but also being a student in radiography as well. So I'm guessing a lot of you can see me out here, but if you can't, that's me on a holiday. As you can see, we're happy in radiography. But moving on, how I got into radiography is probably not the same as a lot of you guys sitting here, because I wouldn't have been in the category that you're in right now. I wouldn't have even known what radiography was when I was in 5th or 6th year. When I was in school, I was completely confused at what I wanted to do. I mean, the question, what you want to do for the rest of your life, it's quite big and it's not to take so lightly. And I just felt like it was such a burden to just think about it. And I was seriously just confused would be the word. And coming towards the CAO options, you can probably see that radiography is not even on the list. I frankly didn't even know what it was, unlike a lot of you. And the top of my list at the end of the day was physio. I really wanted to do physio. I could see myself being an amazing physio out there, and that's all that I cared about. Medicine sort of popped in and out of my list, but it never really stuck around for me. I didn't really see me trying to fit into that world much, and I couldn't really think of what else to do. So I put down general science everywhere afterwards, because obviously you have the 10 options to fill up, and I did. But leading towards June, when after you're leaving cert, the options open up again for a very brief moment, where you can just sort of finalize what you want to do. I realized that I really wanted to do physio, but I wasn't really interested in doing the other subjects that I had down. And looking at radiography, I saw a lot of the aspects that I really liked in physio. So I thought it'd be a great idea to put down a course that I had done no research, had no clue what it was, down as my second option. And you know what? Lo and behold, my CAO offers came out and I was absolutely devastated. I was there looking up, what do radiographers do on Google the minute that I saw my course code come out. And I'm very glad that a lot of you aren't in the same shoes as I was, because you're here today trying to figure out what it really is to be a radiographer. So going forward from that, I came into first year, I chose to do the course, and I was feeling quite uneasy. I didn't really know if this is somewhere where I would fit in, if this is something I wanted to do, until 3 months down the line, we were introduced to our first clinical placement. And that's really where I found my calling to do radiography. Now, this is something amazing that radiography in UCD introduces to you. You're able to do placement from first to 4th year. So unlike a lot of different courses where you might only step into the professional world that you're studying about in maybe 3rd or 4th year, you're there from 3 months down, starting the course. And that's brilliant because you can see if this is really for you. And that's where you can really get to know the environment that you'd be subject to or like be introduced to further down in your career. So that was great. I loved the element of working with people. I wanted to fully immerse myself into the hospital experience, and I loved the patient-centered care, the fact that you have such a big impact on your patients. I didn't really see a lot of the different aspects of radiography within the classroom until I actually stepped out and went into the professional world. So that was brilliant. So currently I'm somewhat down from here, going down that corner and heading towards my graduation next year in June. And hopefully by the time you're here next year, you won't see me because I'd be down working in one of the hospitals. But that's my journey from where you're sitting now to here. I can definitely say that the hardest part about college is probably getting in. Like the exams that you're facing, the tests that you have every day, the oral exams that are popping up out of nowhere, like the stress and pressures that you're used to now, it's probably not anything I can really compare to, because when in college, it's more paced towards, when your deadlines are, everything that you do goes towards a grade, it counts and it matters. Unlike you doing 6 A4 pages on a Friday night for something that's not ever going to count towards the final exam. So I can say that it only gets better from here, and college isn't a walk in the park, but you can definitely stay afloat, and there's plenty of supports to help you down the line. But something much more relative to you right now, what are the actual course requirements? So you have to do, or your top 6 subjects count, and you have to do English, Irish, Maths, a foreign language, a science subject, and a recognized subject, other than those. And out of that, 4 subjects must have at least a H5, and 2 have to have an O6 or a H7. Going down to the nitty-gritty bits of this talk, and probably my least favorite part is the points. Here's a table with the points streaming from 2019 to 2023. Now, from 2019 to 2022, I've only included the round 1 offers. That's basically the cutoff point for the first round of people that have gotten the course. And so they range around the 500s, and it sort of goes up and down as amongst the years, depending on demand. In 2023, it's just last year, I put down the round 1 and the round 2 offers. You can clearly see the jump there, like 556 in round 1 and 546 in round 2. It may not seem to be a lot, but that's a jump for so many more people to get into the course. So if you are a person who didn't get in on the first round, it does not matter whether you get in the second or the third or the fourth. I have a friend who got in on the 4th round offer, and he's been flying through, and to be honest, he's been thriving it. So it doesn't matter as long as you get in, if this is something for you. And I'm not really sure what 2024 is looking like. And looking at these, I don't really want you to go freaking out like these two. I can definitely say that one thing I would tell you not to do is to choose your options on your CAO based on the points that are on the page alone. You don't want to be choosing it not based on your interests and based on what could I possibly get. Instead, if you look at that long list of strengths that you have, because you all have so many, and try and see what you want in a profession yourselves, and try and see what course fits into that box. That'd probably be more realistic. So that's what I did. I basically opened up the UCD prospectus, opened up that content page, and crossed out all those courses that I personally didn't feel like suited me. And I circled up all the things that I kind of really liked and liked to look into. I really thought health sciences was a big one for me. I liked working with people, and the hospital sector really enticed me. I didn't really want to work in a desk job. I liked the idea of education and teaching. I've done business from first to 6th year, so I really thought that could be an avenue. And I like how things work, and psychology sort of enticed me in that aspect. So looking at that, I then looked at what I wanted out of a career. So that's different for everyone. You know, we all have different things that satisfy us in our jobs, but I definitely did not want a desk job. I wanted to work with people. I wanted a career that catered towards my preferences. So I love biology in school. I am quite a communicator. I like working with people, and I wanted a profession that sort of reflected that and allowed me to grow as well, professionally and personally, and also challenged me so that I wouldn't be bored in where I'm at. So looking at those 2 things, looking at the courses there were and that I liked, looking at the things I wanted out of a job, I sort of saw that health sciences was the avenue that I wanted to take. And at the end of the day, on my CAO, it was physio and radiography, and you know where I'm ended up now. So that's that. Now, what sets radiography apart is the fact that we really put theory into practice. From first year on, we're exposed to clinical practice. I would have thought, and to be honest with you, I often get questioned whenever I go on placement, and people that I know would ask, oh, sure, would you not be observing? Would you not be standing there? Why are you so tired? Like, to be honest with you, you are not standing there sterile. You are very much hands-on working with real patients, with real problems, in a hospital that clearly you'll be very much immersed in. You'll be working through a variety of modalities. Modalities might be a word that's new to a lot of you. It's like the different types of imaging that's there. For example, CT, MRI, and ultrasound are all inclusive, and you'd hear a lot more as you go through this next hour. You also get to develop your clinical and professional skills and really put that theoretical knowledge you learn on campus to practice. And because it's so much more hands-on, you just learn so much more easier, and it's catered towards, okay, what do I find difficult? Let me just go do a lot of that and just vocalize what you want to learn. And they will literally help you to get to that competency at the end of the day. And it doesn't start from 3 months down the line when you're on placement. It starts from on campus. We have our own 3D virtual reality rooms where you can put on these headsets and hold these remotes, and you can work through imaging exams as if you're in a hospital. There's a fully functioning X-ray room that mimics the X-ray rooms that are there in the hospital. So when you're out there in clinical, you're not new to the whole situation. You're at least familiar to it. And we have a very mixed learning style with tutorials and small group learning, and it's great because it's very hands-on whether you're here or whether you're on placement. We have a very diverse curriculum, expanding from anatomy and physiology and systemic pathology. You learn about mechanisms of disease, and a lot of those modules you'd share it with medical students as well as physios and BHLS students. So there's a lot of interdisciplinary play here. But then there's also very radiography related modules like image interpretation or looking into the radiographic technique, learning about the different modalities. And you can see every single year there's placement involved, which is absolutely great, because as you go through the different years, you just increase your skill and your competency and your confidence. Another aspect of the curriculum is that it allows you to take on electives. Sorry. Okay, so electives. So like I said, I liked a lot of other subjects as well. And just because you're in radiography does not mean you can't avenue through that. So electives allow you to pick up different subjects, anything that you like really that's given in this university, and you can take that on board. And we also have an amazing Erasmus program where you can go abroad to another country and study there for a semester or part of a semester. So currently that's being done in our final year. And a lot of my friends are getting ready to go to Vienna and Malta and Greece. And so there's just a brilliant opportunity for you to get a better holistic experience of radiography in Ireland, but also abroad. We have a different teaching and learning style than what you'd be used to in school. So I suppose in school you'd have your classroom-based learning, but here on campus, you'd have lectures in one of these lecture halls, and often a question I get is it challenging? Like, is it hard to do radiography? I think the easiest way to put it is it's definitely not a walk in the park. You're not going to be swimming right way through, but it's challenging and it's good because you get to grow along the way. And if you ever do need the support, there's always academic staff or things put in place across campus to help you get there at the end of the day. Physics and chemistry is always a worry for people. Every time I get a question about this, it's often, can I do it if I didn't do it in my Leaving Cert? Listen, I didn't do physics in my Leaving Cert, and I used to tend to stay away from it as much as possible. And the funny thing is, when I was in first year and I was doing these physics involved modules, I didn't actually realize it was physics, because in my idea of physics, I thought it was all these maths problems and equations. And to be honest with you, the most maths you do is probably a bit of adding and subtracting, and it's a lot of theoretical work. So it's pretty great. And with physics or chemistry or all the other subjects, you're not really expected to know anything coming into the course. They teach you from the ground up, and I think that's the beauty of it, because you're all starting at the same base level. We also have group tutorials, amazing facilities, as well as being prepared before you even step out into the clinical world, and you can cater your learning to your interests. But I suppose the most important thing is to find a balance, especially when you're coming in first year and everything's pretty new. When you're on placement, however, you are learning through practice. You work with real patients with real imaging needs. You also work under the supervision and guidance of qualified radiographers who want to get you trained up to the competency that you will be at when you graduate. It's a great place for you to build your confidence. I know going into first year and not knowing how to take an ankle X-ray, and now you're just going going in and finessing the general x-rays. So it's pretty great seeing how you yourself grow and develop along the 4 years. And you're very much involved as part of that workforce when you're there. You're not treated as a student, you are very much involved in the radiology department. And it's a great place for you to find your interests. So like there's loads of modalities. And as you work through each one from first to fourth year, it's a great place for you to see what ones you'd like to specialize in yourself. And there's also clinical tutorials and case studies that you do with your peers while you're on placement. So it's taking that knowledge from real patients that you x-ray and image and scan and trying to look into it a bit more in within your small groups. Again, state-of-the-art imaging technology. I think we personally need to take out insurance before we step in, because I don't know how they trust us with half of this. But it's a great opportunity to be able to use all these facilities within the HSE as well. And along the 4 years, you are exposed to a broad range of hospitals. So in first and second year, you'd be in one base hospital, and in third and fourth, you'd be in another. You will be in a pediatric hospital at some point, and if you go away on Erasmus, you might even work at a hospital abroad. So that's pretty fun. We're assessed a bit differently as well. I know, well, actually, it's been about 4 years since I was in your shoes, so I'm not really sure how continuous based your curriculum is. But when I was doing my leaving cert, it was pretty much the last exam is worth 100%, and if you fail that, you're gone. It's not exactly so in college. There's a lot of different varieties of assessments, and each of them carry a component of your grade. So by the end of the semester, when you go to your final exams, you might have a huge chunk of your passing grade carried on with you. So it's not as horrible to sit them. So we have a lot of different exam types. We have written exams, which is nothing compared to the 684 pages you probably have to write for one question alone for your English leaving cert. We have online exams, and a lot of them are MCQ based or image based questions. We have oral exams, and you're not totally aloof to that either, because of the oral exams you have in your languages, and these are probably shorter in fairness to what you're used to. We have clinical exams, so you can get some feedback on your actual practice, and there's loads of assignments that also carry a lot of the grading components. So every bit of work that you submit is worth something, which is great. And so it's not like the leaving cert, it's more continuous based, so it's not completely overwhelming. And we don't have homework or the weekly class test, so it's not as overbearing. You basically work at your own pace and find your balance, because in university, no one tells you what to do. So you can take that as you will. It could be for the better or for the worse, but most of the time we all kind of like working at our own pace. I know coming into radiography, worry I had was, well, you know, how much radiation would you be working with? Is it actually bad for you? Would I be exposed to so much of it? What protection do I have on myself? What I could say is we practice it in a very safe way, and it is a unique job where you can basically be such an impactful member into a patient's pathway of care. So essentially it is an opportunity, but if you do have safety concerns, there are so many protection measures that are put for you as a staff and for your patients as well, including badges to monitor how much dose you get, and they are always monitored to see that you don't reach a threshold. There's always lead protection available, and it's a very important part of radiography that is very much monitored when you're a student and also a staff. But remember, with great power there comes a great responsibility. So you know, it's not a job to take lightly. You really are making a difference in people's lives. So yeah. And what can you do after the course? This is a question I really did not have the answer to until a year down the line, because I was that student that didn't know what course they were in. But there are so many things that you can do. And these are some things that I managed to jot down in 5 minutes. So I can't imagine how much I can put down after a bit more than that. Most of the time when we graduate, a lot of people go into working as a radiographer in the hospital. You can go down into different roles within radiography, or in the hospital, you can go take up managerial managerial roles down the line. You can even specialize into a modality. You can get a master's in a modality. You actually don't need a master's to be able to specialize either, which is a great thing in fairness, because some people might not actually want to do more than an undergrad, and except if they want to do ultrasound, you would need a master's. So that's the only disclaimer I'd say. You can go into doing a PhD or teaching. There's always cutting edge research done. The field of radiography, I mean, it's something that's existing, but it's always renovating. It's new and improved. The things that we used to do in practice 10, 20 years ago is completely different or evolved to what we're doing now. And for many of you who might be doing the course from next year or the year on, after on, you never know how it's going to look like in another 20 years. So you're never going to be in a state where you're going to be static and bored. It's always going to be changing. And it's pretty great that we get to be in such an evolving field. So where do you actually need diagnostic imaging services? So I've talked about imaging a lot. So a lot of the times people think, gosh, yeah, they do x-rays. But in reality, it's everywhere. Yeah, so we pretty much range between all the different modalities. Now, to name a few, there is MRI, there is CT, there is ultrasound, there is X-ray. You work with peds, you also work with adults and geriatric patients. You work with all different kinds of patients from when they're born, from in utero to when they're, when we're aged. You also work in the orthopedic theater because you need to actually, they need to actually see what they're doing within these surgeries. And we work in interventional care. And that's essentially the difference between providing a patient with a better quality of life and not. So that's very important. And on top of that, there's also something that you might not have heard of. It's called nuclear medicine, which is very prevalent in oncology. So it pretty much goes between you working everywhere in the hospital, from the emergency department to the general department. You work in wards, you work in the ICU, the HDU, the NICU, just everywhere there's patients, you are needed. And the best part about that is that since it's such an evolving profession, it's always necessary to have more. And on top of that, I suppose, honing down into the hospital experience, I think as a student, it's definitely challenging. No 2 days are the same, no 2 patients are the same. There's a lot of problem solving involved, but at the same time, it's really rewarding because you get to be involved in a patient's care, but at the same time, you get to deal with people at their worst and at their best. And you could be the deciding factor into the betterment of that day or not. You work with amazing people. I think the workforce that is there in radiology within the hospital, the faculty here in UCD, but also just anywhere that you go to within the radiography crowd, it's pretty great. So you meet some of your best friends. I know for myself, whether it be in my course or when you're on placement, you get to get involved with so many people, and you get to really work in a multidisciplinary team, which is really important. I think when I was in school, I used to hate teamwork, but after the 4 years of this course, I kind of like a bit of group work. It's kind of manageable, and our work really matters, whether it be in diagnosis or in interventional care. And the best part about it is it really stands out that you're pretty much prepared for the first day that you leave and you graduate. Not a lot of courses have this opportunity where you're ready to go work and you're fully prepared for this right from the moment you're graduated. A lot of the times, a lot of courses would provide you with the education to have the skills that you need to use in a degree, in a profession, and to adapt to whatever profession that you go into. But radiography is different in the fact that you're so ready to just actually have the confidence to take ownership of your profession. And on top of that, it's a great work-life balance. It's probably one of the very few jobs in a hospital that allows you to do a 9 to 5 and get away with it. And yeah, there would be on-calls and night duty and plenty of different shifts, but that's probably also areas where you can make the money. So it's not all negative. And Stepping away from radiography for a second, looking at life as a student in UCD. UCD is such a vibrant social campus. You could see events going on all the time. I think as students, there's societies and clubs that really stand out. There's over 80 societies and 60 sports clubs around on campus, and that ranges from course-related societies, including the Rad Talk, who is a society organized by the radiography students for the students, who often put on rad balls and different social events across the semester. There's also teams where you can get involved as much or as you like, pick up a new skill and basically cater your interests along with your learning. There's always Freshers Week as well, which is pretty fun. You get to see what's happening on campus, and we have amazing facilities ranging from an Olympic-sized swimming pool. We have a sauna. We even have a cinema. There's something for everybody, really, and it's a place where you can really find your people, whether it be through your course, your societies, your clubs, the volunteering you do, and it is a community. And you can probably see that today. I think they were lighting up the Christmas trees over in front of the O'Reilly building, and we actually have Christmas Day on campus, which is a big tradition we have here, where before we go back for our holidays, we all spend one day here with our Christmas jumpers. We light up the Christmas tree, and there's also Christmas dinner with your mates, which is pretty fun. And even though the campus is so big with a lot of people and it might be a bit overwhelming, it's big enough for you to find a bit of space for you to just recharge your social battery as well. I'd say for anybody who is considering to do radiography, though, you're already a step ahead. You're here for open day or the open evening, so that's great on you. But if you can find some real insight using either going on to the prospectus or looking at the course video itself, talking to somebody in the field, whether it be today or if you know somebody who's doing the course or a radiographer themselves, Unibuddy is also a really good resource that you should probably note down. It's an application online where you can literally text somebody who's in the course and they give you the answers, or like you can just chat out what you have questions about the course. And I think, you know, the fact that it's 100% employability really speaks for itself. When you leave the course, you are guaranteed a job, which is amazing. If you're the kind of person who likes science, who is social, likes working with people, or not, likes problem solving and working with technology, and just want to get involved in a field that is ever growing, I would definitely say radiography is for you. So that's my little spiel. Thanks so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shane. So I am one of the lecturers here in the radiography program, and I'm also the head of subjects. So I look after all the academic responsibilities and make sure we're doing all the exams correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really going to try and maybe give you more the academic side of things. And if there's any questions, of course, please feel free to stop me during the presentation or even at the end. We did actually originally plan, we have two radiography programs here in UCD. We have a 4-year program, which is what I'm going to cover now. And we also have an accelerated graduate entry radiography program, which is 2.5 years. Now, unfortunately, our graduate director just got sick today, so she can't come and do the presentation. So I'm going to give both, if that's all right. Can I just do a quick check? Who here is interested in the graduate entry program? Super. Okay, great. So I'll start with the 4-year program. The good thing is there's an awful lot of commonalities between both our programs, because as you can imagine, radiography, it's health profession based, and it's also a regulated profession. What that means is that we actually have an independent regulator, which is CORU, if you've ever heard of it. So we have a state regulator who essentially governs many healthcare professions such as physios, radiographers, dietitians, etc. And their job is really to make sure the public are protected, to make sure people who enter the profession are safe and competent to practice. And it's because of that, even though we have a 4-year and a 2.5-year program, they both cover essentially the same subjects, just in different timelines. Okay. So, to be fair, Janice has done an amazing job of describing her experience from a student perspective. So I hope I'll add to it. There might be a small bit of overlap in certain places. But maybe just first a few clarifications, because again, people leaving school, often their first thought is they see radiography. What the hell is that? Is it to do with DJing, radio stuff, whatever? We get all these questions. A few important, I suppose, clarifications is firstly, we have a few different branches of radiography. And you'll see that in the name for one of our programs, we call it diagnostic radiography, because the radiographer can be someone who takes images of the body for a diagnosis. Okay, and that's the program we deliver here. It's all about taking different imaging, different scans of patients to help either diagnose or follow up or help with treatment of a specific illness. There is actually another branch of radiography, and it's called therapeutic radiography. Okay, and therapeutic radiography is, as you can imagine, is to do with treatment or therapy. And that's for patients who are diagnosed with typically a tumor, cancer or oncology. And one of the ways of actually treating that is to hit it with x-rays. Okay, so we use x-rays to try and kill or reduce the size of a tumor. So they're two quite different, they're two very specialized degrees and two different specialized programs. Ireland, UK teach them separately. Many other countries do a combined approach. But just for you to know, in UCD, we teach the diagnostic branch, and Trinity teach the therapeutic branch. Okay, so a few key differences for them, although there's loads of similarities. They both do a lot of the common education in terms of the use of radiation. Diagnostic, what we'd cover here, is very much in terms of how to use x-rays, not just x-rays, but say MRI and ultrasound imaging to understand what's going on inside the body. Whereas in the therapeutic side, they are trying to understand exactly precisely where is a tumor, and then to deliver a really high radiation dose to that tumor for every day for 40 days. With the idea being hopefully we'll shrink that tumor over time and help to cure that patient or to slow down the growth. Okay. And the other question we often get asked is, well, is radiography radiology, and what's the difference? Okay, so a radiographer is the person who will meet a patient, do their imaging, take their x-rays, do their scans. But the radiologist then is typically a doctor first, who specializes in reading x-rays and interpreting. Okay, so two very different, although they work together hand in hand. And in every x-ray department and radiology department, you will find radiographers doing the imaging, and then a group of radiologists in the offices or back rooms looking at those images. Okay, so to do radiology, you generally have to do medicine first, so 6 to 7 years, and then you specialize for 4 to 5 years in radiology. Okay, whereas radiography is 4-year degree, or a therapeutic radiography is 4-year degree. Okay, so they're the two branches and quite different in many ways. Janita's really explained well what radiography is in terms of the many different aspects to it. It is a healthcare profession with vast majority of our graduates working in healthcare environments. But it's not the only place. We also have industrial radiographers. They are actually radiographers working in Dublin Airport, whose job is to x-ray planes every day, okay? Looking for small cracks in the planes, the wings, and check, do we need to repair it, replace it, etc. And it's not just in airports, also looking at pipelines, looking for microfractures, and there's some industrial approaches. But the vast majority of our patients work in healthcare. And it really is a mix of patient-facing, but also technology-based, because many of the equipment that we use are quite complex, quite expensive, and are doing amazing things. So it's really this combination that's blended into one profession. Obviously, the patients you see will span the gamut of life, from neonates right through to end-of-life care. Okay. And in terms of the technology, again, that varies. So like Janita says, she says we should get insurance for our students. We absolutely do. We have lots of insurance just to make sure our students, because they have to be protected themselves as well when they're working in healthcare environments. But you'll be working with equipment that will range in cost from 30,000 to 3.5 million. Okay, so you kind of don't want to wreck it, or at least do your best not to. Okay, so you can see some of the technologies here on screen. And again, the world of imaging and the world of healthcare is constantly changing, evolving. You see it ourselves when we hear about the budget costs for the HSE, how it's constantly going up. And sometimes that's appropriate because we're getting new ways of helping patients, diagnosing and treating them. And then sometimes that costs more, especially in the early phases. Very much to familiarize, make sure everyone understands the many modalities, which Anita nicely explained, is radiographers is often associated with X-rays, and they are very much our bread and butter. Right? It's probably about half of all imaging that's done in a radiology department, but it's not everything. And no doubt everyone here in the room has at some stage, more likely than not, needed an X-ray, whether that's from a simple fall off a tree, twisting an ankle, or even getting a chest X-ray for immigration purposes. Okay, so X-rays are very much our bread and butter, and they're just simple ways of looking inside the body. And we don't just do it of bones, we can also do it of soft tissues, even the breast tissue here. And we have a screening program in Ireland and across many countries across the world, whereby we invite people who aren't patients. We actually invite members of the public, because what we're trying to do is trying to identify patients who are at higher risk of developing an illness. Okay, so there's one of the areas where we're not just looking at X-raying or imaging bones, we're actually looking just at soft tissues to see if we can see any signs of illness at an early stage. Another branch of X-ray use is actually in live X-rays, so using what we call fluoroscopy. So there are occasions when we want to see actually how parts of the body work, how they move, how they react, and that is essentially using X-rays in a live fashion. And here's just a few examples of it, where we can actually ask patients to drink some fluid for us, and we'll just take X-rays as they drink that fluid and watch it, how it goes down the throat, people who are struggling with maybe feeling a sensation of something being caught in the throat, and we can follow that around the body. So we have different ways and means to essentially look at not just the structure of the body, but also the physiology, or how it actually works. Again, ultrasound is very familiar to nearly everyone, every member of the public, every person here, because it's a key part of healthcare, especially in obstetrics and in pregnancy, because we use it to image a lady as she's going through pregnancy. Everyone's familiar with it, but it's not just in pregnancy scanning. Here you can see just a scan of a fetus, and you can see the blood flow going in and out through their heart. We can get great three-dimensional images, which are really useful and really help people visualize what's going on. But we use ultrasound for loads of different indications and reasons. Big benefit of ultrasound is that it doesn't use X-rays. Okay, so we're not just an X-ray based profession. We're using any imaging that we can to try and look at what's going on inside the body without opening up the body. Okay, so that's the key benefit here, is we're trying to do non-invasive imaging to help with diagnosis. Angiography, again, you might have heard of this, especially when it's to do with the heart or even the brain, when people are getting stents put in. Radiographers are always involved in these procedures. Why? Because we use X-rays to firstly look at these blood vessels, see if there's blockages, and then the surgeon will help to guide in a stent or a balloon to try and open it up. And we, again, interventional imaging is one of the biggest areas of growth in a radiology setting and even hospitals, because it's one of our best ways of avoiding patients going to the operating theatre. We can do examinations now with less invasiveness. Instead of putting them to sleep and anesthetizing them, we can just put a small hole into an artery, okay, and thread up some devices and then see exactly what's happening and do a lot of procedures during that. CAT scanning or CT, again, we see it from loads of medical dramas. It's just giving us more detailed imaging of what's going on inside the body. It uses a bit more radiation, but again, it's one of the few tools that give us really key insights of what's happening deeper inside the body that we may not get with just simple X-rays. MRI, again, lots of the population are very familiar with this. If you've ever hurt your back, MRI is often your go-to because MRI is great for looking at soft tissues. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we use the benefits or the unique aspects of different imaging tests to look at different anatomy, to diagnose things a bit better. And MRI, like ultrasound, is great because it doesn't use X-rays or radiation. What it does is just use large magnets. So this object you can see here is essentially just a massive magnet that we place the patient into, and we send sound waves into the body. So again, if you've ever had an MRI, all you remember from it is the noise. Okay, it's this really loud tapping noise that's going on. And we can get great images of the body, like you can see here, of the brain, and just see all different aspects of it. Okay. And like Janita showed you, we use nuclear medicine scanning to, instead of look at anatomy of the body, to look at physiology. So here's just an example. It's a bit like matchstick drawings of the body, but this is a very different approach to using X-rays. So instead of sending X-rays to the body, we inject our patients with radiation. The good thing about that is that radiation will go to different parts of the body. We can label it, send it to particular blood cells or body cells, and then wait a while and see where that radiation has gone. So it's almost like a homing device or a homing beacon to look for tumors in the early stage, abnormalities that aren't visible on X-rays, because it takes a while sometimes. Sometimes people go for X-rays and we can't see anything on it, but just the abnormality hasn't grown big enough at that point. So nuclear medicine is one way around that, to look at things and find them at an earlier time point. And PET scans are essentially a branch of that same. Okay, one way of injecting patients to try and identify mostly tumors at an earlier time point. So that's, I guess, the various specialities or the various areas that radiographers work in. The good thing about it on a practical level, and for those who enter the profession, is that we generally get to rotate across many of those areas. We don't just work in one area. You don't just work in doing chest X-rays. You don't just work doing CTs. You will generally rotate around all those clinical areas on a 2-weekly basis, which is great for variety. Keeps you interested, keeps you engaged, keeps you always learning as well. So that's a very positive thing. I know Janita touched on some of the subjects students cover here during their 4 years or during the program. We generally divide them up into what we call practice subjects. So in other words, how to practice the art and profession of radiography, clinical subjects, technology subjects, and then also anatomy and physiology subjects. So there's a range of them in every different year that you're here with us in UCD. And I won't cover this, Janita's covered it quite well. But generally, our students, when they're on placement, are very much hands-on. They don't take that back seat that Janita referred to. They're rather asked to partake in every single aspect of healthcare. Sometimes because we have to, because hospitals are short-staffed often, but we really want to give our students the hands-on clinical skills, because the whole reason we send our students to placement is there's loads of things we simply can't teach them here in an academic setting. How to talk to a patient, how to deal with a patient who's upset, okay? How to deal with a patient who's just had a trauma, just been out of a car crash. It's those things that only being in that setting can actually give you. Okay, so we use them, we structure them, but very much it's a hands-on experiential learning resource. The hospitals we use, and this is useful to know just from a practical viewpoint, the UCD program, because we're the main undergraduate teacher of radiography in Ireland, we actually send our students to nearly every hospital across the country. Okay, we use 22 different public hospitals. So even though students come to UCD to train, they're not always sent to Dublin hospitals. Okay, and the reason for that is hopefully will be kind of come clear, because we take in 100 students per year, and but we can't accommodate all those 100 students in Dublin centres. So most of our hospitals will take, on average, most X-ray departments will take about 7 to 8 radiography students per time. Okay, so it's on that basis we have to send to a variety of different areas and different hospitals. So what we do is we generally, once students enter here with us in UCD, we generally ask them what their preference is. We tell them firstly that you will be changing hospital at least twice. And that's important because we want students to get a flavor or an experience in working in different settings. All right. So we ask them, what hospital would you like to be for your first 2 years? And where would you like to be in your final 2 years? And we try and accommodate preferences as much as we can. don't worry too much about all this. This is essentially just a curriculum on one slide, and it's just all the different subjects that are there. The main thing to take from this actually would probably be that we have we've trimesters in UCD. We have an autumn and spring, but there's also a summer trimester. Okay, that's why it's called tri, so to do with 3 semesters. And in the summer, we generally use the summer only for clinical placement, okay, in our 4-year program. And typically that's mostly occupied in stage 2. So in the second year, our students will go out for about 7 to 8 weeks of placement in the summer of year 2. All right. But what you will see, and again, it was referenced by Janita in terms of just clinical and every year, and that's really important to us because we don't want to just teach academically to students in every semester. We need them to learn about it in the classroom, but then go in and apply it into the hospital setting. So all clinical placements are linked with their academic modules that they're doing over the course of the 4 years. Again, this is just similar to what Janisha showed you in terms of the range of subjects that are done in first year. When you look at the prospectus or get a flavor, UCD operate on a modular-based system. So in essence, students take modules, which are just different subjects. So the radiography program has a series of core modules. So core means you have to do it to get your radiography degree. And then UCD offers you elective modules. So every student in UCD gets to choose modules of their own choice, whether that's a language, a business, science subject, computers, artificial intelligence, whatever you want. And that's important. UCD feel that that's important for students to develop their own interests and not just be very much focused and tunneled into one professional area. Our students do get the opportunity to travel, which is probably one of the best things about radiography as a career because it's translatable across the whole world. And it's almost a rite of passage now for most radiography graduates that they won't just stay in Ireland. They will go to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US to work for a period of time. Okay, get some experience and return. And as part of that, we're lucky to be involved in, at the moment, in an Erasmus network. So in other words, universities across Europe who teach radiography. And in our final year, we do exchanges. So in other words, we send our students away for 12 to 13 weeks, where they get to do a couple of weeks of academic life, and then most importantly, 8 weeks of clinical training. So 8 weeks of working in a hospital in any of these countries to understand how radiography differs in a different country, different approaches, different populations, different health systems. And it's a really invaluable experience, and we're very lucky to have it. Our students also get a chance to do optional summer exchanges. Here's just a couple of them. We have relationships with universities in America, in Quinnipiac, in Vienna as well, where there's a summer school that we've started operating last year. And so students go for 2 weeks. It's a funded 2-week program. So they go and do essentially 3D modeling using 3D machines and try to create models of the human body, etc. And then we also have a rotating summer school, which goes to across a number of different universities in Europe. I think Janita's done most of the sell for me, so I don't feel like I have to convince people, but hopefully on your walk around tonight, you'll see some of the great facilities we have here in UCD, not just in an academic setting, but also the sporting and social aspect. And some of them are shown on screen here. This is just an example of one of the images from our virtual radiography software that we have, and our students get to experience. So they actually physically practice with virtual patients before they go into a hospital. And that's great because they're not just practicing on each other, but they also get to learn and make mistakes in a virtual setting so that we can correct that, hopefully get them up to a level where they're a bit more confident when they go into placement and start dealing with real life patients. The job prospects are pretty good. They've been 100% employment for the last 20 years almost. So it's one of the few professions that are in such high demand. I know with the new pediatric hospital opening at National Children's Hospital, they're going to be looking for over 100 radiographers in that one place alone. Okay, so there's a big demand at the moment. So job prospects are good. Travel opportunities are many, and there's also many postgraduate opportunities as well for those who are interested in coming back and specializing, and many of our students do. I'd say between a third and a half of all of our graduates from our undergraduate program come back at a later point to specialize. You might be wondering, well, why do you have to? Well, it does help with job progression, because you can become a specialist in ultrasound, a specialist in CT, a specialist in MRI, or a specialist in a range of other areas. And that helps people to be promoted in work, to be able to take responsibility for running different departments. It kind of works quite well. So some of the advantages, I'll just list them here. I know Janice has covered them as well. It's very people focused. So if you are interested in people, not just the technology, because what you will find in any hospital environment, it's people, people, people. You're not just meeting 30 to 40 different patients a day. You're dealing with all the other radiographers in the department, the porters, the nurses, the doctors, the radiologists, okay, and everyone there. So it's really a people, a focused profession. It is an international qualification, so it does travel well, like I said. But again, there's always disadvantages. And it's useful to think about them at least. Because most of our students or graduates go into the public healthcare system, not just public, but also private, there can be some rigid career pathways. Okay, there's kind of, at the moment, there's a 4-level system, and people can sometimes find that frustrating. Also, Janita said it's one of the few 9-to-5 jobs. Not quite. You do have to make sure there's a radiographer on standby every hour of the day. Okay, so as a routine, radiographers will tend to work at least one long day a week, where they'll work a 12-hour shift. They'll work possibly one weekend shift every 2 or 3 weekends, and then even a 1 24-hour shift. So there's always something happening. And sometimes you're working from home, sometimes you're working in-house in the hospital. And that can get excessive. Again, it kind of impact your social life. If you're having to do on call and you're wishing you could go to the match or do this and that. So just something to think about. And even though it is quite specialized education, it opens many doors. It is a Bachelor of Science degree that our students graduate with. So it's a BSc in radiography. But because it's a BSc, it does open many doors. Many of our graduates, a number of graduates actually from the last years have actually gone into business. They've gone into consulting, Ernst & Young, other places, gone into sales, marketing, whatever, because they get many transferable skills. And that's it. So in terms of deciding is radiography for you, obviously you're on a head start. The fact that people are here already and are listening to it, finding out about it. Unfortunately, many of our students who get into the CEO actually find out only what radiography is on day one. Okay, because they might have been elbowed into it, pushed into it, or recommended to do it without fully doing their research. So it's really important to do your research. We have a number of videos up on our YouTube channel if it might be helpful for you to understand the working life of radiography and also how radiography is operating in UC. So do check out our socials and have a look at it. Another really good method, and what I find is often the best, is word of mouth. Maybe it's a thing that Irish people are quite reliant on, is talk to people who are in the role, in the job. All right. So if you know anyone, great. If not, seek them out. All right. I'm here. You can ask me any questions. Or you can even email us in the university here. We have an email address that I'll show you here that you can send any queries to, that hopefully we can assist you with. So that's it, guys. Hopefully I've added a small bit to Janita. She's a tough act to follow, but I hope I've done it a bit of justice. So any questions, feel free, shout them up. Yeah, sure. So all our placements are block placements. So it's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So it's a full week. It's a 40-hour shift. Okay. And that's important. We used to actually do placements of just 1 and 2 days, but our students didn't like them because they felt they were only getting used to something and then they were stepping away. Okay. So it's really just to embed them in a department to get to know and understand the full workings of it. So all our placements are full-time. Just so you know, so in first, we ramp up the placement. So in first year, our students do 4 weeks in hospitals. In second year, it's 8 weeks. Third year, it's 14 weeks. And in final year, it's 13 weeks as well. So it's almost a full trimester that you spend in hospital. So to put that in perspective, even though you're here for 4 years, about a third of your time will be spent in hospitals. So you will not be on campus here in UCD. And that's good, okay? And that's one of the reasons why our students, as soon as they graduate, will be able to register with CORU and start working almost immediately, okay, as a basic radiographer. Because they have the skills, they've done all the competence tests, assessments, and they're ready to go. Okay, so it's almost an inbuilt apprenticeship as well as your university academic training. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. It's all actually, the HSE publish all the starting salaries. I'd be lying if I said I have the exact number, but if you look up HSE salary scales, it'll be on that. As far as I know, it's about 38,000 at the minute. Okay, is my understanding. But every different grade you go on. So we have 4 grades in radiography. We have a basic grade radiographer, which is where all our new graduates go. After about 3 years, you're eligible to become a senior radiographer. When a role comes up, that goes up a level. Then you can be a clinical specialist radiographer, which is generally those who are responsible for a department. So you might have to do a master's to qualify for that. I would mean you'd be running a CT department, running an MRI department, running an ultrasound department. And then our final grade is our radiographer manager, services manager. So that's in terms of management levels. So there's 4 general levels at the moment. So yeah, do have a look up. Sorry, I didn't bring it down with me, but they're all available on the HSE website. So just look up HSE salary scales. Anything else? Yeah. For mature, we do, yeah. So good question. So every year we take in 100 undergraduates to our 4-year program, and within that 100 students, we have 2 spaces reserved for international students who can come from anywhere in the world, and then we generally reserve between 4 and 6 spaces for mature students. All right. The mature applications are done on a competitive basis, so we generally invite applications through the CEO system, and then we shortlist based on the applications. So if you want to apply, you submit a standard application as well as a statement of interest, why you want to do radiography. And then what we do is we pick out people who seem most passionate, most interested, and we invite them for interview and then see how that goes. Okay, but yeah, we find it really important actually to have a mixture of not just school leavers, but also mature students in our program, because they all come from quite different perspectives and they all actually kind of tend to work together quite well and can help each other a lot. Yeah, so very good. Anything else? Yeah. No, they're not. The only entry route is via the CEO. And now we do in UC have here and there schemes. So again, you can look up the UCD website for that. So here and there access. So there's kind of reduced points for access for disability support and other people from other socioeconomic backgrounds. So yeah, so we do have other schemes that build in. It's one of the main things that people ask is, why are the points so high? Points are high just purely supply and demand. Right? Every year we get about 800 people applying to do undergraduate radiography here in UCD. But we only have 100 places, okay? And that's it. That's why the points fluctuate, as well as with leaving certain results and grade inflation tends to push it up a bit. But yeah, that's simply it. And the reason why we stop at 100 is that's the maximum we can put in hospitals around Ireland. So because the clinical training is so important and such a vital part, we have agreements with nearly all the hospitals in Ireland, and that's the max at the moment they can accommodate for us and facilitate the teaching of our students. So it's unfortunately just limiting factors in terms of resources limit that. Yeah. But on the slight positive, there is 100% appointment once you get in, okay, because they're in such demand. Yeah.
What's the room for specializing in longevity without doing enough?
So when I said we have a rotation system for working in different areas, so even if, so we generally tend to rotate everyone into at least one specialized modality area. So you generally be asked for your interest, because generally after your 4 years of training, you have a bit of a interest in one over the other. So you might want to work in MRI, for example, and then you would generally be given in-house training to do that. Okay, but the in-house training is very much on the job, practical. But to be a specialist in there, you'd have to come back and do academic training as well. Okay, so in the main, most people will be trained into at least one specialist there, possibly more. You'll find is a lot of the private employers in Ireland, because they're radiographers in such demand, what they do is they promise to train you into as many areas as you want with on-the-job training, or they might support you or pay for you to go back and do a master's. Okay, the HSE also do provide support for sending people to do masters, so it's not just the private, but just to be aware of that. But it's generally a good thing. We want people to come back into further education to get better, want to take on extra responsibility, but do it with a firm foundation of why stuff is done, and to, in other words, give the best care for our patients and the population of Ireland. So we don't just want people walking to jobs because they're there the longest, or they're there 3 or 4 years. We want them to have the background to show that actually I can do this and do it well. Okay, everyone happy enough? Okay, great. I'm going to sidetrack a small bit and just talk a small bit. I'll keep it brief. I know because, like I said, we have a number of similarities between our undergraduate 4-year program and our graduate entry program. So by all means, I can see people moving already. If you're not interested in the accelerated or the graduate entry program, by all means, you can leave now. Some of it will be common. I'll try and just focus for 10 minutes even. I won't keep you too long on the benefits of our graduate entry program. Okay, so I'll give you a minute. I know people are starting to move now. Okay, so our graduate entry program is actually quite new to UCD. We've actually it's only in the running about nearly just short of 4 years. Okay, and this program came about really because of the sheer demand for radiographers in Ireland, and we were looking to see if there's any way we could increase the number of people who come in, and also help solve the problem whereby we have a lot of people who would like to get into radiography, but not necessarily come via the CEO route. Okay, there's many students and people in Ireland. Unfortunately, in Ireland, we send probably more people go and do radiography in the UK than they do here in Ireland itself. All right, so it's trying to answer that question as well and give a route, at least a second route, for people who maybe, and the CEO, like Janita said, didn't really know what they want to do when they were a 17-year-old, but after they've done another degree, that maybe they think, actually, this might be for me, or I might like to try radiography. So what this is essentially, it's an accelerated program. So instead of 4 years, we condense it down. We make use of the holidays. Okay, so we don't just use clinical in the second year. We use it in every summer for this to allow them to complete all the elements and graduate within a shorter period. So you can see here on screen what it's called. We do call it, it's just a slightly different name. It's a diagnostic radiography or graduate entry radiography. Instead of 240 credits, which is standard for a 4-year program in UCD, this involves 180 credits. So about 6 or 8 subjects less than our 4-year program. But what's not in here are very simply the electives. Okay, so you heard earlier that we in UC for undergraduate programs, all students do at least 35 to 40 credits of electives, different subjects from around the university. We don't require that for graduates because they've already done a degree. Okay. The other thing that we don't require our graduate entry program students to do is research modules, because it's one of the key admission requirements that we ask for our graduate entry program. So for us to expedite the program and condense it enough, what we've done is we've taken out the electives, but we also taken out the research modules, because if you've done a degree before, more likely than not, you've done research as part of that. Okay, so that's one of the main differences between our two programs. Otherwise, the vast majority of the subjects are identical. Okay, you still have to do essentially a 1,200 hours of clinical placement, exact same. It's just done in a different time scale, and the majority of all the other subjects are the same as well. So I'm delivering this on behalf of Alison, who unfortunately couldn't be here due to sick leave, but I'll do my best to do it justice. Like I said, it's really there to help us to provide another pathway. another avenue for people to get into radiography who do really want to get into healthcare and to study with us here. So we take in a smaller number of students, typically 20 to 25. Okay, but those 20 to 25 students will sit and be members of the class with the undergraduate cohorts. Okay, so they all generally do the modules together at the same time. And they'll have all the same supports, you make use of all the same facilities that we have and do pretty much all similar or identical assessments as well. The VR virtual reality software is just shown in here. It's not that it's unique to the graduate entry program, it's common in both, and both will rely on it and use it heavily throughout the first year or two anyway. Here's just the map of our curriculum. What you'll notice straight away, just from a quick overview comparing to our 4-year program, is there's a few less subjects, okay, because we have 60 less credits of academic activity. What you might notice here is that our clinical practice extends into the summer in first year, extends into the summer in second year, and then they complete by Christmas of their third year. So they're here with us for 2 years and one trimester. Okay, so that's as short as we could condense all those modules and teaching into. In terms of admissions, so it is a graduate entry program. So it's open to any person who's got a level 8 honors degree, okay, in any discipline, but they must have a 2.2 degree qualification or GPA. And they have to have qualified or have that degree by June of the year of entry. Okay, because obviously we need to see the evidence of that degree before they can start training here with us. The application is via the CEO, so it's very much like the school leavers into the 4-year program. It's just to a different program title. And you'll see that on the UCD prospectus and on our website. We call our 4-year program simply radiography. And to differentiate it, we call the accelerated program diagnostic radiography graduate entry. In terms of CEO admissions, it's effectively the same process as for the undergraduates, with the standard closing date of the 1st of February, with then late changes of mind up until May. To get admitted or be considered for the program, it obviously is competitive, but we do ask for people, firstly, send us your transcript, show us the evidence that you have a degree, and also send us the syllabus of that program. Why the syllabus? Well, we have to check to make sure you have done that research that we require, okay? Because we need all radiographers to have research training. And that would make sense because in a healthcare environment, we need people to be able to understand, digest, and apply research in their work, okay? So we do need to just see evidence of that. And it's generally at least a minimum of 5 ECTS or 5 European Credit Transfer System a module within their degree. We also ask for a personal statement. So in other words, why do you want to come to radiography? And that's really important because that's what gets you to the shortlisting. That's what gets your bum on the seat for the interview. Because we do go and interview nearly all candidates for our graduate entry program. So do take time on that and outline, I suppose, your reasons and your rationale for wanting to get included on the degree. And we also ask for some references. And that can be from academic and work experience and also one additional one. In terms of assessing it, we generally will assess all applications the same way. We have a small subcommittee here that will review all admissions as they come in. We'll assess it based on your previous academic ability, your academic records, what research you've undertaken. We'll probably give preference to people with a science background if we're tight for spaces. So because they're just more likely to succeed rather than coming in from, for example, just a business degree who may have a sharper hill to run up in terms of getting up to speed with I suppose, the nature of the profession. I suppose, give a lot of weight into the personal statement and your reasons for joining radiography. And we also look at other evidence of what you've done since finishing school, whether that's hobbies, activities, work experience that might be relevant, that might be translatable. And essentially what we're doing is just trying to make sure as best as we can that you're set up for success. because what we don't want is people getting into the program then who drop out, or who struggle with it, or won't be able to qualify for whatever reasons. We just want to make sure we're going to do justice to people who get in. We generally organize interviews for round about, I think it's about, well, April, May, to fill those spaces, and we try and inform people as soon as possible so that they have they can plan themselves, because it's no small decision deciding to come back and do a second degree. Okay, it has not just financial implications for yourself, having to support yourself for a number of years back in college, but no doubt you might have family circumstances that also need to be considered, and whether you need any other supports. We do recommend strongly a visit to a radiology department that shows your interest, shows us that you've gone and found out, you've done your basic research, you know more about the profession. Unfortunately, this has gotten more and more difficult since COVID. The hospitals aren't as amenable to allowing people to just walk in off the street, spend a bit of time with patients, etc., because there's infection control issues around that. But it still is possible in a local friendly hospital who might be able to facilitate it. So if it's possible, do go and at least try to organize that. The clinical patient is embedded throughout our program. So again, like our 4-year program, we have early clinical exposure because we want our students to practice radiography, go and be in a hospital in your first year. Why? Because it links theory with practice, but most importantly, you find out very quickly, generally in the first few days, if this is for you. Okay, and it gives you a chance to consider that in full before, rather than wait until the end of your whole degree. In terms of the hospitals to go to, quite similar to the undergraduate, but we have arrangements for the way we accommodate the graduate entry program is we have agreements with many private hospitals to take our graduate entry students. So they might be large private hospitals, just for example, St. Vincent's Private, Mater Private, Blackrock Clinic. They will take a number of our students additionally so that we can avoid, I suppose, the congestion in the public hospitals. But we do make sure all our graduate entry students get to experience public hospitals as well, because there's aspects of work in public hospitals that you won't see in private, and vice versa. So we need all our graduates to be able to experience both. And that's it, kind of a quick fly through of the graduate entry program. So it is competitive based. It's done admissions via interview, application followed by interview, and then it's a condensed 2.5-year degree. It is again a Bachelor of Science, so it's not a master's. There are other programs that offer an accelerated course and they call it a master's program. Ours is still a Bachelor of Science with 180 credits. That's it. Any questions, guys?